what is marketing procurement? Can you shed some light on that role for agency leaders and agency people that are actually on this webinar today for us?
Yeah, I will do, Jay, and say hi and thanks for inviting me on today. So the proper definition is the strategic sourcing and acquisition of goods and services that are needed for a company's brand's marketing effort. So what does that mean in English? What it means is that we are there to optimize cost, so the marketing budget. So note that I haven't said save money, I've said optimize. So optimize the marketing budget. And I saw a talk that Pete Markey from Boots did yesterday for Kantar, and he was very much talking about marketing investment, marketing budget. So we're there to maximize the budget, so get value. We are there to ensure quality. So be it, the suppliers, agencies that we're dealing with. And that leads to making sure we've got the effectiveness of the marketing budget. And that could be things like supporting ROI, KPIs, metrics. We are increasingly looking at things like D&I, about sustainability, etc. So it's a very varied role, but ostensibly we are there to help manage the marketing budget to maximize it. And we do that by managing the supplier base, and that is making sure that we mitigate risks as well. So obviously someone like during COVID, when everything started to close down, and marketeers are like, what do we do with the agency relationships we've got? Procurement would then really obviously came in and said, right, this is how we manage our supplier base. How can we maximize the deals we've got in place, but how can we mitigate risk as well, because of what's going to happen for next year or so.
And I think that's a great intro, and getting that point across that this isn't about driving costs down all the time with procurement. It's much more about building that holistic relationship with the agencies to maximize that return on investment in the marketing budget and mitigate risks. So I think that's really important to get across there. So what is a marketing procurement department looking for from an agency partner? What are the things that are top of their radar? What are the real things they're looking to get from that agency partner?
Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a long list in prepping for this, so I'll probably pick my sort of top five. I think the key one for me would be strategic alignment. I mean, we use the word partnership, and I know a lot of agencies say that, procurement see agencies as suppliers, but I do think in marketing, and it is a tricky category for procurement. If you look at the procurement of, buying a pen, for example, there is a specification, but by marketing, we are buying people, and that is a specific skill. And I do think it is the most complex of the marketing categories. And I do think we do look at our relationships with the agencies as strategic partners, because when you've got the right partnership, and I do a weekly thing on LinkedIn called Tina Towers, and just some articles that I put up this morning actually lend itself to that. There's a report from McKinsey. I've also shared a report that an agency's done about B2B marketers, what they're looking for. And it is about having that, knowing the brand, knowing that immersion, so being a strategic partner. I think there is transparency. And that could be transparency of cost. I mean, you could argue, how transparent are you? I'm not a fan of when procurement asks for, the salaries, the overheads, etc. That, for me, that's just taking it too far. But you have got to have accountability. So if you're quoting 50,000, £100,000 for a job, you have to explain how you structure that. And I know there's a lot of movement about moving to value-based pricing. If you look at the IPA report that I've nagged them to update on pricing remuneration models, there are 10 different models. So there's all different remuneration models. But I think that transparency, I think quality, the quality of the output, because you have to have work that works. And again, if you go often for the lowest cost, if I went for lowest cost pen, it might run out within, 2 days. So it's choosing the right agency partner that is, that is aligned with you, that you have got that transparent relationship with, and that has got quality of the output. I think reliability and sort of the magical logic, as we discussed many years ago, the study that was done, it's having that balance of that logic, in terms of how to project manage, how to respond to deadlines. And we know clients, it's quite hard sometimes to work with clients to work to their deadlines, and we say 2 sets of amends and it's 3 and it's 4, etc. But having that project management skill. And I think the fifth one for me would be actually innovation and creative solutions. I think, when I worked at Orange years ago, we termed a phrase about being the client of choice. And I think that is so true in buying marketing. You want to be that client of choice for agencies, that especially in this world where digital and data are so key, and obviously with things like AI, you want to work with your partners who are coming to you to say, actually, if you thought about this is what we're doing in social, this is what we're doing on the event scale, we looked at this, what we're doing in PR, and having that knowledge and expertise that you can really help the client drive creative and innovation solutions as well.
That's fantastic, Tina. So just recapping there, the 5: strategic alignment, that transparency / accountability, the quality of the work that the agency's delivering, the reliability of the agency to actually deliver on that quality over the period, and also that innovation and the creative understanding of these are the things that are happening out there, and have you as a client thought of these things. So if they're the top 5 things that you would be looking for, how are agencies, how do I put that, how are agencies getting this wrong? Where are they going wrong in these areas? And going forward, how can they change some of these things? How can they do better to right those wrongs that might be happening now?
Yeah, great question. I think on a lack of transparency, and as I said, it is that balance. And I'm not a procurement person that wants all the level of detail, but there just has to be, how they can do it is having a level of detail in the cost breakdown, understanding how they've come to that, whatever agreed the fee structure is, be it project or retainer or commission or value. It's having the rationale. And I always say to agencies, I was working with a US client online on Wednesday, and the agency, in New York has come back and said, the monthly fee's gone from X to Y, it's an increase. Based on what? And it was an Excel with we need 3 other people, and the timelines have gone from 10 months to 7 months. Well, that's not good enough to justify another $500,000 worth of spend. And I've got no problem how they want to justify it. So I do think that transparency, it's just taking it to the next level. I wouldn't go too deep, but enough to provide the rationale. That person's had a job increase. That's why we're looking at this. It has, I think sometimes agencies need to really look back at how clients are working, because that's what is driving the costs. The 3 rounds of sign off, senior management not being in the meeting, the brief after brief after brief. We all know it, we've all been there at the client side. So it's not being negative on clients, but saying this is the way you're working, clients. So if that's driving the cost, this is how we need to do it. So I think lack of transparency is looking at detailed cost breakdown. I think in terms of the inconsistent, in terms of quality and creative, that's another thing that I see. I think invest in project management. When I worked agency side 18, 19 years ago, there was a move from renaming them production managers to project managers. And I think that was such a great idea to do. And I do wonder whether I see a bit less of those project manager roles now. But I think they are so key in agency to make sure that, we've got the right brief, we've got the client brief, we've turned it into our own brief for our own creative and strategy people. Okay, what are the timelines? What's the budget? And I do think agencies sometimes are not great at managing the client's budget. And we all know clients sometimes ask impossible tasks for small amounts of budget. But it's having that balance to say, if the client's giving you budget for 25 grand or for 50 grand, you need to be able to manage it. And so if they've given you extra work, if they've given you extra scopes of work, there is a cost to that. And I think having that reporting, so having project management in place with the tools. And I do think obviously sometimes there are costs for agencies, I appreciate that, but having that QC, having that project management. I do think ignoring the procurement process is another thing that I see. And I think I know it's hard for some of the agencies perhaps that are watching, as you said earlier, Jay, perhaps they've won a new client and procurement's new, engage early is what I would say. And yes, you will get the procurement people that perhaps want to look at the lowest cost, but get that up front. And I think that's changed quite a lot. I do think you always are going to get the ones that will want the lowest cost, and perhaps are responsible for buying IT, marketing, HR, etc., and haven't got the nuances of being a marketing specialist. But if you engage with procurement early, I would always ask a client. So that'd be the one big bit of advice to agencies watching this is always say to clients, have you got procurement? Should I engage with them early? Because at least you know what they're like. And if they are the type that want to look at cost savings, play the game. Build the
Yeah.
fee up to get it knocked down. And also, what I see time and time again is agencies do a brilliant job in negotiating third party costs and often save money for that photographer, with that influencer, with that PR placement, but forget to tell the client. And also, if you engage with procurement, you can say, well, actually, that last job you gave us is 150 grand. Do you know on the third party cost of 50 grand, we actually saved you another 10 grand? And that takes the pressure off the fee. So I think definitely having that sort of lack of transparency, but having that structure in place, and ignoring procurement at your peril. So engage early from that point of view. And I think comms, I do think agencies, whilst we work in the marketing industry, can be quite poor at communication, and they are busy. We know that there's a lot of pressure on them, but be it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, be it quarterly, commercial reviews of procurement and the client, or quarterly business reviews, however you want to use these acronyms. I do think agencies sometimes, because they are busy, they are really busy, but just to do a reporting, here's the scope of work, this is where we are, this is the additional scope of work you've given us, having that communication process, and if you've got that QC and management in place, that will really help as well. And the last one I think I see quite a bit is misaligned objectives. And I think the client have got their objectives, we need to grow the brand by X, we need to sell X, whatever, but the agency is only interested in them because actually they're a drinks brand, they want a drinks brand on their creds list. Well, actually, no, because actually, and it is a learning for procurement as well as marketing agencies, is everyone should have the same agenda. Obviously, it's about making money. The client wants to sell brands, the agency wants to make money and then wants to sell, etc. And procurement want to make sure there's a right investment. It's making sure that there is alignment with the business objectives and making sure that fits the agency, and they are working to what the client wants. And and that's why I am a fan of performance-related fees. Although they're not as prevalent as they were, but actually when I worked agency side at Grey, there was, we had P&G, and they were the only team at that time that were focused on, is that ad with Ainsley Harriott with Very Liquid selling, because actually there was a bonus linked to the performance of that work. And I do think we sometimes miss that a bit. So I do think, so lack of transparency, misalignment on business objectives, inconsistent quality and delivery, poor comms, ignoring procurement, but look at detailed cost feedback. Just don't focus on creative outputs. Look at business objectives, have project management, invest in technology to help you manage, agree a comm schedule, and engage with procurement early.
See, I mean, all of those things are amazing points. There's one that really jumped out at me, and I think I could have a whole A game just on this, and it's the change in the agency world with account managers and project managers, how
Yeah,
sometimes that roles become combined, and I think
yeah.
that does cause multiple challenges through the agency and through the relationship from clients. So I made a note of that and thought that could be an A game all on its own: project management,
Yeah,
account
yeah,
management.
yeah. And as I said, Jay, years ago, so when I was at Grey and Low, it was a big thing. I do remember quite a lot of the heads of production that I work with, agency side, were saying, "Oh, we're going to upskill, we're going to reskill, and look at project management." And actually, I was looking at a fee proposal yesterday for a client, and I was like, what's that project, or why is a strategist doing that? I thought actually that's a project management job. So I think it's a great one to look at, Jay, with your clients in terms
Yeah,
of what that investment in project management is, and the tools. I think that with technology these days, and I've always felt that agencies are much more on board with tools than perhaps clients are. So I think really look at using systems perhaps like the ones that you access, in terms of being able to manage that, because actually with AI and sort of like that, no one wants to spend time doing lots of boring timesheets and managing that. But I think can be scope creep. That is the biggest issue for agencies, as we know, isn't it? And if you've got systems in place that can manage that, then that's better, and you can use that for better resourcing planning going forward from an agency point of view.
brilliant, brilliant, really amazing points here. So all in all, you're an agency, have identified these things you spoke about. What's the advantage of having and working with marketing procurement? Because there must be advantages. It's not just seen as this barrier to sale or driving profit. All the things you've said there feels to me like, actually, if you get these people on side and you start delivering these things, there's actual advantages to the agency here, of having this close relationship. So what are what are your war stories, Tina, that you've seen where agencies have really developed these relationships with people like yourself and other marketing procurement people, and it's been a fantastic relationship, delivering great results for both parties? And I think that was one of the key things you said as well. This is about making money for the client and for the agency. So what are those advantages, the war stories you've got about where you've seen that work? I know people would love to hear that.
Yeah, I think in terms of war stories, I think, I've got great relationships with a number of agency, heads, people like Dougie at VCCP, who we worked together at Grey, or, James Murphy at NCA when I did a project setting the team up at John Lewis, and Adam and Eve, or Nighty, Paul Knight at Manning Gottlieb. And, we've got those great relationships because we've worked together, together with the marketing, the CMOs that have allowed sort of procurement, myself and the agencies to work together, and have really built up that relationship, with a bit of fun, obviously, as well. But actually understanding all those points I sort of said in the question before about understanding, the client that I was working with, them having me as an equal partner. And I think, even now when I do pitches and I'm dealing with those characters, we're like, just cut the crap, sort of like, you want this, we want this, go do that. And actually, it's great. So to have, and I think agencies can be scared of having relationships with procurement. And sometimes, they are a bit scary. And, if you give us an answer to a question, we're going to tell it all the agencies, and don't ask the agencies that. But I think really having that relationship with procurement is worth its weight in gold. If and Pete Markey on this call yesterday, saying he's a CMO of Boots and now the IPA president, said when he first got to Boots, I think it was 2020, that actually he had a meeting with finance, and I was going to ask a question about procurement, but I didn't. But in that finance, he's an equal partner. I would say it's finance and procurement. So I think the benefits are, on the cost side, I mentioned transparent cost. I think if you're working with procurement, they can understand your cost model, understand, what the remuneration model is, what works. You've got to make money. Agencies have got to make money. They have to invest in staff and technology, etc. And, so it's that balance of getting that competitive pricing while earning your X% profit. And if you've got a good relationship and the agencies, have a relationship with procurement, they can give you other work. So having that, and I know that all the time, and actually I've just been working on a global pitch for the last year, got an agency in, it's great. And already the client's like, well, actually, I'm just going to the agency about it's a little bit of work I've got in this market. So I think, whilst I'll say about cost is that commercial structure, and the benefit is having procurement understand your commercial structure and that you're fair. And we like to push agencies, but also we like when agencies push back because, good on you, I pushed you, and stand up for what you believe in. And actually, I've got a lot of time for agencies that say no in pitches because, that's what they believe in. The second one would be that strategic alignment, that a benefit is understanding what is going on, because some marketeers are busy. Actually, if you have got regular comms communication with procurement, you're understanding where the company's going and what's happening here, and are you going to look at that for Christmas, etc. So really, I think it really helps. It's a second layer, isn't it? Whilst you're getting stuff from marketing, you're also getting a view from procurement, who often are aligned with finance. So actually, and sometimes those views are not always matched. But so you've got two different points of view, and I think that's a fantastic thing to have. Like Pete was saying about engaging with finance, procurement can give you a really different perspective about what's happening in the future. This is what we're looking at. So that really helps your agency understand the client's goal, and really how agencies can then be more supportive. We know the budget for next year on influencers is going to be doubled, right? Get in their agency and start doing the work on that. Really start, actually, do we need to resource up because we know that client X are going to start doing that. And the third thing would be, a thing that we love doing is SRM, supplier relationship management. And I think where procurement's involved, it gives agencies a regular forum, and hopefully it's two-way as well, where you can say, actually, you're always briefing late, you always got 5 sets of amends, you never pay on time, etc. Because actually, and procurement own that, and I think it's structured like a pitch process. For me, the pitch process is never going to go away. Procurement own it. And if I see another article about a pitch process where procurement's not mentioned, for those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, I'll have a rant. But I think the pitch process and having improved SRM, supplier relationship management, allows agencies to have that regular dialogue to say, yeah, some stuff's great, but some stuff's not so great. And actually that then helps build the relationship. You want 30-year relationships like the P&Gs and Unilevers. So that's three benefits I would look at, that I would see that would help agencies.
And agencies having that confidence to have those conversations. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes that then comes down to the training of the team within the agency to be able to understand how to have those conversations with those senior people at the client, which could be a whole A game on its own again, Tina. You're just getting so many ideas from this today. So believe it or not, that's 9:53. That's gone so quick.
Goodness.
We ask all our guests the last question before they leave. What's one bit of advice you would give agencies in relation to the marketing procurement? I feel sort of bad asking you this, but it's how we always finish because I think you've given so much advice today. But if there was like one gem out of all of it, what would it be?
Think it would be sort of always the last point is to foster open and transparent communication with procurement, because to build that trust, I think will help you align your expectations, have mutual understanding, foster a collaborative atmosphere, and at the end of the day, a more successful and efficient partnership. So communications leads to better partnerships.